With more on protests in the state as well as the risks of spreading the coronavirus, we turn now to our governor.
Our Wes Rapaport standing by to speak live with Governor Abbott. Wes?
Hi, Robert and Sydney. Thank you very much. Let's jump right in with Governor Abbott. Governor, thank you for your time. Minutes ago, you announced phase 3 for your plan to reopen Texas. Business expansion starting June 3rd, as well as restaurant occupancy expanding June 12th, and amusement parks down the line. What does this all entail?
So it entails a lot. Listen, Texas is getting back to normal with regard to opening up businesses, and it's going to be great to see now that our restaurants are going to be able to have 75% capacity. The bars are increasing to 50% capacity. Our stadiums, it could be a football stadium, a baseball stadium, or basketball, whatever type of arena can go up to 50% capacity. So we have strategies in place that all 4 doctors on our team approved of to make sure that we will be able to continue to expand business in Texas.
How do recent protests and possible spikes in transmission that could follow affect the next steps for this Reopen Texas plan?
So listen, it's something that we are concerned about. I spoke with Dr. Birx with the White House Coronavirus Committee today, and she expressed concern about spikes that could occur because of these protests. And so it is something that we are monitoring, and actually we are making available testing capabilities for anyone involved in the protests who may want to test to determine whether or not they do have COVID-19. So this is incredibly important, but it is something we need to keep a watchful eye out for.
Governor, what do you say to the Texans who see these protests or are participating in these protests? How do you as a state leader respond to the calls for change here?
Well, listen, my first response is one of anger because what happened to George Floyd is just horrific and should never happen. And we need to make sure that nothing like this ever happens in the state of Texas, because this is absolutely reprehensible what happened to him. And so there is a reason why people are angry and protesting about this. And, you know, it's part of the United States of America where people do have a First Amendment right to voice their complaints about actions like this. At the same time, we need to make sure that the protests remain free from violence, from vandalism, because the First Amendment does not authorize someone to throw a brick through a glass window and destroy somebody's property. That's exactly why we have law enforcement out to make sure that all protests remain peaceful.
Governor, you said the process to work on criminal justice reform needs to begin before the session in January. Do you mean that we need to start discussing these ideas, or do we need a special session to tackle legislation right now?
No, the way the legislative process works is obviously a session begins in January, and if you offer up a bill at that time, it's almost too late in the process. The way that bills are crafted in the state of Texas is they begin a half a year before the session begins. And so now is the time for legislators to start bringing up ideas, proposing ideas, testing those ideas with their fellow legislators, and they will get a feel for the art of the possibility of being able to pass meaningful legislation like we have so many times in the past that lead to reform that have made Texas one of the lead reform states in the country. But the process begins now with legislators beginning to work with each other on crafting meaningful legislation.
Governor, after the school shootings over the last few years and after the attacks in both El Paso and Odessa, you held roundtable discussions to address some of those concerns. Of course, the coronavirus complicates those in-person meetings right now, but would you consider convening a similar kind of roundtable to meet with Texans who have concerns about racial justice in our communities?
So I've already considered doing something like this, and it, as you point out, it is constrained by the fact that we are dealing with COVID-19, and it limits our ability to do it. But because of our response to COVID-19 and because of the possibilities that are opening up, it is something that we look forward to as soon as possible.
Governor Abbott, thank you very much for your time. We'll have to leave it there for now. We will talk to you again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes and Governor Abbott. Still ahead, encouraging signs of hope for countries that were once hit hardest by the coronavirus. See what may soon lie ahead.
Will Dupree again here in the KXAN Live studio. You just heard from Governor Greg Abbott doing a live interview with our Wes Rapaport there during the 4:30 newscast over on KXAN News. Just before that interview began, the governor's office sent out a press notification saying that Phase 3 of his economic reopening plan since the COVID-19 pandemic began and really had an impact here in Texas is now going to go into effect. We are still breaking down exactly what it all involves. There is a lengthy release sent out as well as start dates. What I will say is that effective today, this is again from this press release sent out by the governor's office, effective today, all businesses currently operating at 25% capacity can expand their occupancy to 50% with certain exceptions. Bars and similar establishments may increase their capacity to 50% as long as patrons are seated. Amusement parks and carnivals in counties with less than 1,000 confirmed positive cases may open at 50% capacity. Restaurants may expand their maximum table size from 6 to 10 people. Again, those are things that take effect immediately as of June 3rd. There are additional actions for June 12th, June 19th, and then additional openings I'm seeing in this release. Sorry, I'm just looking off screen here to read off what this particular order states. But we are breaking down what is included in this third phase of the governor's economic reopening plan. We'll have full details over on our website, KXAN.com, and the KXAN News app. There will also be an update tonight at 9 and at 10 o'clock over in our newscasts, so please catch it there. Thank you all again for watching. We will continue to update these stories and follow along many different threads. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you back here another time.